Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Both Sides of the Table, the show where I tell you about how things are looking from the social side and the cultural side, while my friend Jason Senti will tell you about how things are going from a technical side of poker. I'm Gary Wise. I write for ESPN.com and also on my blog at jgarywise.com. He's Jason Senti. He's a far more talented person than I am. He was a member of the November 9. And you can find him regularly both on PokerStatic and on BlueFirePoker.com. Jason, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for the introduction. I don't think we could say I'm more talented. Probably could say I'm more talented at poker, but we can very easily say you're more talented at writing. So.
Okay, how about we say you're more talented at things that pay well?
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. You just got back from Foxwoods, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. It was pretty sweet. Bernard Lee put together a big November 9 reunion event. It's really shocking. He got all 9 of us to come out there, most of us for like a week straight, too, in order to, play poker at Foxwoods, where he's, I think his official title is the ambassador of the poker room, something like that.
Yep.
He put together a great event on Tuesday. It was a bit of a, turbo quick thing, but it was a fun event with a lot of media out there, and they put us into a bunch of other events, pretty much anything we wanted during their Mega Stack series. So played a few of those, went pretty deep in one, actually. It was only a little $400 buy-in tournament. But Jarvis and I both went really deep and played at the same table a lot. And live internet streaming of like a featured table and all this stuff. So it was actually pretty cool. And then he, treated us well. We went to a Celtics game and we went to a Bruins game and had a good week hanging out with all the November Niners. So a few of these guys I haven't seen in a while, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I gotta say, you mentioned how amazing it was that you got all 9 guys together. Just scheduling John Duhamel for anything right now is next to impossible. We're going to have him as our first guest on this show in the next segment. It took us 4 tries of scheduling just to get him on the show, and that's not striking as John. That's just a statement as to how busy and how popular he is right now.
Oh, it's crazy how busy he is right now. They've got him working a really a pretty grueling schedule, I think, but I know he's enjoying it, and I think he's doing a good job of going out there and being an ambassador to the game and taking advantage of that main event title that he got. Even with me, I've, gotten to know him a little bit now over the past, I don't know how long it's been, probably 6, 8 months, whatever, since we made the November 9. And, he'll text me back the second I text him, answer the phone when I call, but scheduling him for an hour in a situation where I'm free and he's free and, especially for him, that's actually really, really tough. They're working him hard.
Folks, for what it's worth, I'm always free.
I don't know about that, but so far it's been a lot. You've been kind and worked around our schedule. So.
Well, it's one of the benefits of working at home and on a keyboard. You can stop writing at any time and record, and I'm happy to do it because, not only do I enjoy working with you, but, getting the opportunity to work with John is obviously a big deal. And, for your benefit, I got to say, at least one of the 2 PokerStars guys won that tournament, Yeah,
it's pretty crazy that 2 of the final 9 were Stars guys, and we got one to go through. I kind of wish it were me, but it was a lot more likely to end up being him, being that he went in with the chip lead in. And, I'm very happy for him. He's an awesome guy and a very good poker player. Going back to what you're saying about, or what we were talking about with Bernie getting all that together, it really is nuts. Even more than just John with all these guys. I know Racner's only out there for basically the day, but got him there. And I know Dolan doesn't necessarily like to, travel to stops that don't have a lot of money involved. And, I assume it's that way with most everybody. Even the Grinder was there for a week. I think Grinder was there longer than I was. So it's pretty crazy.
And Grinder's loving those Miami cash games right now, so getting them away is got to be pretty tough. I was following your Twitter feed while the whole thing was going on. That's at PBJax, for those who don't know.
Yeah, thanks for the plug.
At Gary Wise 1, just for your information. I was following your feed, and an interesting little story came up, and that was that you and Matt Jarvis got into a little cross-booking, and it actually started to feel kind of not so great for you, even though you did well in the tournament. And it wasn't because Matt was still in the event and you weren't making money. You were having a real problem with the idea of cheering against someone that you genuinely liked.
Yeah, I really had a hard time with that, way more than I thought I would. So the way that went down is, truthfully, we all partied till very late the night before. It was a Wednesday night. And on Thursday, I think that's right. I don't know. Days blur together for me. I'm a poker player. I don't know what day is what. In any case, I'm pretty sure it was Thursday then. We played, played an event. It was a $400 event out there. To be perfectly honest, we weren't both like taking it, considering we were not partying the night before, we weren't planning for it like it was the biggest event of our lives. No surprise there. But we still, wanted to play good poker. So we both got down there, and their event started at 11. We had to meet at like 10:30, et cetera, to get bought in. So it was pretty early for us as poker players, and we were both really tired and a little bit hungover. And right away he was like, "Hey, let's do a crossbook or something just to motivate us." Because I mean, first prize, it was like $38,000 or 35. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't something that we'd scoff at. It'd be wonderful to get, but really until winning it or top two, there was very little value. As far the amount of time we had to put in, we weren't feeling very good. So you thought if we crossbook, meaning whatever he wins, if we did 100% crossbook, it would be whatever he wins, I have to pay him that on top. So if he won first prize for $35,000, I would have to pay him $35,000 as well. So basically doubles the prize. And he thought that would be a form of motivation. I agreed, but to be perfectly honest, I was just like, I don't know if I want to be motivated right now. I'm really tired.
I was gonna say, joking aside, $400 tournament is small potatoes for you guys. Do you really want to be motivated to the point where you have to stick around for a couple days?
Yeah, I would have if I'm fortunate enough to go deep and do well, that's awesome. And that's a lot of fun. I like playing poker. The environment there was great. Seriously, the people at the tables were awesome because a huge percentage of them were fans of all of us and were very nice. But at the same time, I didn't know how well I could play those couple days and didn't really feel like pushing myself. So I just kept saying no. Well, then all of a sudden I went from having 15K to 75K in a few hours, and was chip lead for a while. Actually left the tournament for about an hour to go eat lunch with Joe Chong after he busted. Came back, and then Matt built up a stack, and so he kept bringing it up. Eventually, once we got near the end of the day, and it was like, okay, field size is shrinking. I've got a big stack. He has a big stack. We were, two of the biggest stacks in the field, maybe even top two. We decided, hey, I said, I'll do a crossbook with you, but I'll do 50%. I ended up having to lay him a little price because I had more chips than him by a decent margin, but I was going to pay 54% for his 50. And so we went ahead and did that. Then he went on heater and started doing really well. Built this massive stack. I was still probably top 3 or 4 in chips, and he was easily number 1 by a huge margin. And that's when I realized this sucks. Because instead of being happy for a guy that I really like, and in a tournament there's still enough people that it's not like I'm, feeling the squeeze competitively, I was just angry every time I heard he won a pot. And I really didn't like rooting against a guy who I genuinely like and, consider a friend. So that did start bothering me, and I mentioned it on Twitter, etc. Let's be fair, I was kind of grumpy that day as it was. I was being
you were hungover. You were hungover, exhausted.
I was being a little bit of a drama queen about it. There's no question. But at the same time, it was something I didn't enjoy that much. So after we both made day 2, and that was with few people left. I think day 2 had like 40 people left. And we both had big stacks. Once again, I had a little bit bigger stack than his going into day 2. So what we ended up being able to do is just drop it down to an even number. We made it 20% on both sides, and it seemed reasonable enough. So that took some of the pressure off, I guess. But even then, we were both put at the same feature table. I got this huge stack, and he got short, and I'm sure he felt even worse about it then because he knew if I went on to win this tournament, he was going to lose money. And then that flip-flopped, and we both ended up busting. I busted like 24th, and he busted 19th. Didn't matter. I ended up sending him $50, $48.60. So at the same time, though, I realized that
Jason, for some of us, that's a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think most people can afford a few pizzas, but any case, I decided that this was the kind of situation I would prefer not be in. I don't know if I'll ever cross-book with anybody unless it's somebody who's not a very good friend, and I think I have a big edge on. I also don't think, I'm going to do way better against the field than, Matt. I think he's really good. So
folks, if you're a shitty player and Jason hates you, feel free to offer him a crossbook.
It definitely isn't a hate. It's just maybe somebody I don't know all that well. Either way, what I probably should do is just come out publicly and say I'm not doing crossbooks, so that I don't end up with somebody out there who thinks I suck and thinks that I'm some arrogant jerk. And they come, who's like a name in poker, and they just start approaching me left and right with crossbooks, because that's not going to be a very good situation, I don't think. Well, maybe it could be. It might be really profitable.
If you're a shitty player and Jason hates you, just saying. All right, so this segues very nicely into the big issue that's come up in the poker world this week. Prop betting's been on the front burner, and the reason for that is because Ashton Griffin won himself a fair little chunk of change, $300,000 for running 70 miles, which I have not done in the last 2 decades combined.
Lifetime. I guarantee. It's got to be close that I've never run 70 miles in my life. That's not a joke. I hate running.
I was actually reasonably athletic when I was in my teens. And I would run like mile or 2 mile races occasionally. It's a long time ago, so I think I'm over 70 lifetime. But seriously, the last 2 decades, I think it's a real stretch to say I've run more than 70 miles.
I was reasonably athletic too, but I don't think you could ever call at any point best shape I've ever been what I did on the field or in any sport running. I'm a disaster at running. Even when I still play softball, and it looks like I'm running with a trailer behind me in the mud. So you can't call anything I've done running anyway.
Well, he did this running, and it was only the beginning. He won his bet. He put up $900,000 against $300,000, and that was only the beginning of the saga. And the reason that was the beginning is because after he finished, Hasid Qureshi, the guy who at least had most of the action against him, departed their home for good, and then went online and published a long, sprawling, nicely written account of his view of the way the bet transpired, along with every emotional detail from, again, his point of view. First of all, you've read both parts, right?
Yep.
And just so people know, it's over on carrunners.com. It's under Hasid's blog, so you can go and check it out. It'll be up there for the history of the internet. So, Jason, you did read it.
Yeah, I went over there, read the whole thing. I ended up having to span it out over a few days because I was busy, but it's very well written. He writes very well, I think, anyway, especially for a poker player. And it's a pretty intriguing story.
For an early 20s poker player especially.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I'm going to start off this conversation by saying I have a real problem with the way he held himself up to be a protagonist in the story. I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly how this thing played out, but I can't help but feel like there was some bias with regards to his depiction of himself and his depiction of the dilemmas that he was faced with. Do you, from what you read and what you've heard of Hasid in the past, do you think that he is legitimately the guy that he depicted himself to be in that thing?
I don't know anything about Hasid, not gonna lie. Other than that, I played with him years ago, Heads Up on Full Tilt, and he probably crushed me because he destroyed Heads Up for a year and a half or something, no limit. And I see it a few of his videos. That's really all I know about him. Whether or not he's the guy that he depicted himself, I don't know. Let's say in general, almost everybody's going to depict themselves better than they are, and most people think more highly of themselves than they really are. Myself included. I think I'm pretty cool.
Yeah, no.
That's just the way it is.
In my writing, I actually have a lovely full head of hair.
Oh, really? Is that how that works?
It's true. It's true. It's luscious.
Nice. Yeah, I hear you. So, any case, I would assume that, he probably went a little overboard on how he is. More than anything, it did, if I'm going to criticize, along those lines, I would say it did feel a little bit like he was, I don't know, kind of writing this for himself to, try and dive into exactly the way he's supposed to feel. Maybe amplified the situations where he felt bad, amplified, the spots where anything that would point to him being a really good person, despite doing something that he at least has decided was a bad thing, taking part in a wrong and immoral activity, according to him. Not saying it is, and while writing about that, really kind of, I don't know, made himself seem like a really, really good guy. He might actually be that good, but it did seem like that was over the top.
Yeah, I don't know that you can be as good a guy as he was depicting himself to be and take this bet, because he knew that there was physical harm on the line. He knew that he was banking on that physical harm. And I wrote a couple blogs over at my new blog, jgarywise.com,
nice.
In the poker section about this particular issue. I think what he did is not the act of a friend. And this is me getting on the moral high horse. I think a friend gets in the way of the guy who wants to run 70 miles and potentially harm himself in a way that could be everlasting instead of trying to take advantage. And I understand the logic behind, well, he's going to make the bet anyways. He's obsessive compulsive. I might as well get the action if I think it's good. But even still, the friend stops the friend from doing it. You don't let your buddy hurt himself. Not if you've Not if the relationship is true. Do you agree with that?
I fully agree with that. At least that's the way I see it from my perspective. Truthfully, I'm going to be pretty PC about a lot of this. It's just the way I am, and I try and be somebody who doesn't step on toes of almost anybody. But I know for me that I really have a hard time believing I could ever be behind somebody putting that kind of bet together. Friend or not a friend, friend for sure. It's not even close. I actually remember once getting involved in a prop bet with a friend where it was.
If the guy you want to cross bet with, with,
yeah,
wants to poker his eyes for money.
Yeah, there you go.
You're there, right?
Any case, I remember once making a prop bet with a friend where there was no way he was going to have physical harm, but I really felt like he was drawing dead on it. And it was myself and another friend, this other guy who, basically it was a pretty crazy situation. He was going to play like 10,000 hands of poker after we'd been up all night drinking and all this stuff and like at least break even or make money or something. And, couldn't sleep in between, had so few hours to do it. And it just seemed so insane. Now, it wasn't a massive sum of money, but it was enough that I knew it would matter a little bit. And he was sure he could do it. And I had a really hard time booking the bet because it's like he's just not being logical here. So obviously I'm a terrible, terrible prop better because I'm more concerned about that. And there was no way he was going to hurt himself, etc. And for what it's worth, I went through with the bet. But I remember the dilemma I had and I actually going to my other friend who was on the other side and being like, dude, I don't know if we can do this. He's in a terrible situation to make a decision. He goes, he's a grown-up. And he's like, it's not that much money. If he thinks he can do it, he wants to take our money too. Just take it. I'm like, okay, you're right.
For your friend, for the friend who you collaborated with, would that equation have been changed if it was life-changing money?
I think so. I really think it would have.
Okay.
I guess, I know if it were life-changing money, I wouldn't have been involved anyway. But in this spot here, when you're talking about the potential for physical harm, which is kind of what you're banking on. That's what the bet is set up around, is that he's going to hit a wall to the point where he physically can't run anymore. From the little I know about Ashton, like, the guy's a beast. He doesn't stop. He
right.
drives and drives and drives and drives to the bitter end. I know a few people like that in my life that don't necessarily play poker, but there are some people you just can't stop. They will go until their body fails them, whatever the activity may be, and he appears to be one of these guys. And yeah, I think taking that bet would be pretty brutal, and it did seem like most of this blog was about how he felt after it happened and justifying the actions. Somebody's going to take his money or not. I mean, one, if you really step in there and fight him, maybe you can get him to stop. But if I'm going to say that Ashton doesn't stop once he gets his head on something, I don't know well enough to know that for sure, but it seems like that. Maybe you can't stop him, but that doesn't mean you need to be the one taking the money for sure. I really don't think I could have been on that side.
And you know what? You can stop him as much as he's saying that he's going to make the bet. You can run interference. There are at least steps you can try to take, even if they're not successful. You can try as a buddy to take care of a person who is obviously in a little bit of need, from what Haseeb described with regards to Ashton's mental state and so on. I
don't think you need to physically intervene and go over the top like this is a friend trying to go drive drunk when he's completely just messed up.
Well,
that's what he physically do. But you can try everything you can through talking to the friend and really convey to him that this is a bad idea.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Haseeb included in the blog the excerpt from the previous night where Ashton went to I think the name was Jordan, the friend, and said, "I'm sad all the time." And it was kind of a pointless excerpt, except to prove that Ashton was not in a sound state of mind. Putting aside for a second that this is obviously a private moment that Ashton was sharing and a private thought that he was sharing, and it was not meant for public consumption. This is obviously a guy who's not in a good state, and I think steps should have been taken to try to help him. Frankly, if that statement was actually accurate, he needs to go see a professional. But those steps should have been taken, and for Haseeb to hold himself up as a friend and not take those steps, it strikes me as disingenuous.
I agree. To be fair, regarding that this was a private statement and I put it on a blog, I would be quite surprised if Haseeb didn't ask Ashton, can I write this whole thing out, including all details?
My understanding is he did, and Ashton said no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Never mind on that, I guess. I don't know. I can't comment on that because I'm not sure which is true. But yeah.
We'll see what it's like. Now, I did speak to Ashton after the whole thing went down. He he mentioned to me that the longest running he'd ever done, like the most running he'd ever done in his life in a 24-hour span before this, was 22 miles. Now that's his word. I don't know if it's true or not. From the way he wrote about him, it sounds like he doesn't have a dishonest bone in his body. Yeah. Is there any chance that any of this was a bit of an angle? That this was a con and that he knew that he could do it?
I would doubt it. Of course, it's possible. From everything I've heard about Ashton, and I don't know a ton, but I've heard that if anything, he is a very, very honest guy. Probably a bit naive. Maybe that's changed, but at least was pretty naive for quite a while. Has been taken advantage of in the poker world. It's actually kind of a weird thing because he hit. This is just a weird little side topic, but he hit me up on through the internet a few years ago because he was in Minnesota and knew I was. Obviously, he was playing nosebleed stakes, levels I've never played or anything, but he was in Minnesota, didn't know a lot of people at the time. So I think he was, kind of looking to hang out, maybe golf, etc. I didn't get back to him for a few months, and then started to talk to him a little bit here and there, and I've met him, in Vegas, and see him and say hi to him. But I've recently thought, especially after reading this article, man, I would actually kind of like to get to know Ashton a little bit more. Seems like a really good guy, but I have kind of, since not talking, taking him up on it right away, decided from everything I've heard that I really don't want to come across as somebody who's trying to be one more guy coming in to scam him. So I'm afraid to actually be overly nice to him, be like, hey dude, how you doing? Da 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 da. Especially with now all this stuff being aired out in public, and now all of a sudden I come around and all of a sudden I'm a nice guy. And after I've heard that he, has had problems with people kind of ripping him off, so it's actually held me back from, even making an attempt to get to know him better.
Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second there. I want to talk about the broader implications of this with regards to relationships within the poker community. You and I both know that when you are a part of this community, you move forward with common interests of the people that you're competing against with the understanding that you are eventually going to compete against them. How many true friends do you think you have in the poker world, Jason?
True friends? Like guys that, I would invite to my wedding or something now in the future?
Okay, well, no, let me rephrase it. How many guys are there who, if they offered you a bet that they could run 1,000 miles in a day, do something absolutely impossible, who you would try to stop them from doing it? Sorry, that's not even a fair question.
Yeah, that one isn't either because
they can read 10,000 pages of books in a day. They do something that's just not humanly possible. But at the same time, not damaging. Would you? How many guys are there that you would stop? Just say, look, you're my friend. I don't want to take your money.
Yeah.
As opposed to guys that you would say,
there's a slight problem with that question. But a little problem with that question is it relies on, I guess, it relies on the way I, view people and situations like this. My answer would be different than a lot of other people for knowing people the same amount. Okay, for me, as a guess, probably 10 people. I don't know.
I guess that's a high number.
Okay, maybe. But I'm also a big wuss and overly nice guy. I assure you that if it's 10 people, 20 people, whatever that number is, I assure you that a number of those people on the other side would not do the same for me. And that isn't necessarily saying something bad about their character. It's, or something good about mine. If anything, it kind of makes me a sucker sometimes. But that's just, I don't know. I am nice to a fault. So.
The question this inspires for me is how healthy an environment is the poker world for the people who are fully immersed in it. And the reason I ask is because, I wrote about this. These people are essentially walking around in solitude despite interacting with other people all the time. Because there's no one that you can really trust, and no one you can really put your faith in. And frankly, being in that kind of an environment can't be healthy. Psychologically speaking, to know that everybody's out to get you,
that sounds pretty rough. To be fair, I really do think there's got to be a lot of people in the poker world who have friends they would die for kind of thing, who are also in the poker world. I know I have, most of the people I surround myself with in the poker world, I think are very, very good people who are not out to take advantage of me. But those are the choices I've made. I guess I could be being naive too. I think a lot of it is that kind of situation. And, they're all people we compete with on a somewhat regular basis. And when there's a lot of prop betting between everybody, it becomes a situation where everybody's trying to take money from each other. More than anything, trying to beat people. Now, small dollar amounts and stuff, that's just part of the fun. And people do that, even if you're not professional gamblers. People do that quite a bit, bet on, football or even just like throwing garbage into a garbage can from a distance. But the difference that comes with gamblers and with poker players is most of us like to gamble. Like we like to have the dollar amount sting a little bit or feel good, and our numbers are higher because even if we don't have a lot of money at any given moment, we are used to big swings. We're used to like winning or losing large amounts all the time. So we just get numbed and numbed and numbed to the point where we're so desensitized to the value of any money that our numbers get ridiculous. So yeah, as a result, I think you have what can end up being kind of a scary situation. Even if people really aren't walking around out to get each other, and most of the time it's just friendly competition and it's fun, on occasion something like this is going to come up where it's a really big dollar amount, and all of a sudden it's a pretty nasty situation that I believe that Hasib actually realized a little bit in, like, holy crap, how did this happen and how did this suck? I do believe that he did not realize what he was really
you know what? He never offered a buyout. He didn't
actually, that's one really good point. That Ashton offered him a buyout and he didn't take it. If he really, really cared at like some substantially higher amount about his health than the money, then he takes the buyout and doesn't make Ashton run that extra 10 miles where he could hurt himself. There's no question about that. Now, I understand it was like $1 million and he's only running 10 more miles. How likely is it to go bad? But it appears the way he approached deciding whether or not to do the buyout was purely mathematical, and hey, is he going to hurt himself didn't come into the equation, which is weird considering the whole thing was written about how, he put Ashton in a bad situation, or at least was a part of it.
He could easily have gone to Ashton when Ashton was 30 miles in, about 8 to 10 hours into the bet, and said, you know what? We're about even right now. Let's just cancel this thing. I'm worried about you. I don't want you to get hurt. This is a really bad idea. He didn't do that. Now, I grant you, these are young guys. These guys are in their early 20s. There's a maturity issue. But what I see here is a situation where Hasib was friends with Ashton until money made it convenient not to be friends with him or not behave as a friend. He sort of saw the opportunity, and suddenly that friendship was worth selling out because the dollar total was high enough.
I think that's a little dramatic. I think that's a little dramatic and making it a little bit bigger than I think it is. But I agree that it does seem like at some point he decided the money was worth more than Ashton's health. Now he was getting dramatic, and they're talking about what if he has a heart attack, etc. I mean, that's worth thinking about, and I guess he probably hadn't slept in days, and so he got a little crazy about it. But I think that was really, really unlikely. At the same time, though, if he really was worried about that heart attack stuff, maybe Ashton would have taken a buyout. Maybe he knew it wouldn't have. Maybe it was even discussed, but wasn't blogged about. But when Ashton offered the buyout, even if Hasib thought mathematically this isn't a very good deal, if he really put Ashton's health way above the money, he would have snap taken it so Ashton quit, destroying his body.
Right. Folks, if you haven't read it, you should. If you're that one person who still hasn't read it. So we're on Card Runners, in the blog section. Go check it out.
Say one thing. I'm going to throw one thing in here right at the end, since we more or less have been kind of bashing on Hasib here. I already put the disclaimer out. I don't know him. Blah 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 blah. Being a wuss about it. But also, what it's worth.
Stand by your convictions, man.
Honestly, I don't have like that strong convictions about what was written in this thing, but it is interesting discussion, and it's something that we've spent 15, 20 minutes talking about. Which it's so basically, Hasib, at least it was a very intriguing story and very well written. So I'll say that for sure.
All right, before we wrap up this first segment, I want to talk to you a little bit about high stakes poker. This is a show that over the last few years has gone through a lot of changes, which suggests that they have not been doing great in the ratings. They have been fighting Poker After Dark and the big game as far as cash game television goes. And this past week, they announced that Gabe Kaplan was being replaced with Norm Macdonald. They didn't announce whether Gabe left or whether he was fired, but it's an interesting choice. I actually interviewed Norm about 2 hours before we recorded, and we talked about the fact that he'll be more of a fan in the booth than an analyst. I'll do a lot more writing about what I found out on ESPN.com. And there's another one of those lovely little plugs for you folks. What was your reaction when you heard about this choice?
To be perfectly honest, I haven't been watching high stakes poker lately. I admit I missed the last season. I watched the season before because that was the year Dwan came on and just like was crazy, right? Was that 2 seasons
Right.
ago? I don't know. And I watched all that like on the internet after hearing about it, and it was awesome. I always really liked high stakes poker. I just haven't watched as much poker on TV in the last year or two. Uh, all that said, it's a little bit surprising. I was never as big of a fan of Gabe Kaplan as everybody else seems to be. People seem to love the guy no matter what. I do think he's funny, but the analysis side, to be perfectly honest, at least as somebody who is a professional player, I think it just has no real place because I think most of the analysis is really bad and doesn't really even make any sense. So I'd rather just hear him tell jokes and get play-by-play. Now, all that said,
So you're actually happy with the idea of more of a fan's approach to commentary than analysis?
Yeah, I really am. And I don't know. At the same time, I think that I don't know what the casual doesn't play much poker viewer wants, and they might actually want to hear him say, "Oh, I think I'd expect him to put in a raise here just to see where he's at," which is something I would never say when I'm talking about playing poker. But they might actually want to hear that, and it might make them. I don't know. It might be something they like. So I'm not sure on that. I personally think Norman Mellon's hilarious. He might be a little dry for this kind of situation. I'm not sure when he's by himself in a booth. It's really funny comedy, but it doesn't appeal to everybody. From what I can tell, he isn't like slapstick that everybody's at least going to think it's funny for a little bit.
Right.
He's just got his own silly, dry sense of humor. So I don't know. We'll see. Do we know that the ratings have gone down, or could it just be they've been having a hard time selling ads?
I don't have access to the numbers. At least I haven't tried to get access to the numbers, so I don't know that they've gone down. I can only assume, though, with AJ Benza being removed from the show, and now with this changeover, the constant tinkering of the format suggests that they are having problems because you don't fix it if it ain't broke.
Yeah, they're at least having problems. It might be they're having problems selling selling to advertisers for a poker show in ways of cleaning it up maybe a little more, making it appeal to a broader audience. Could be do something like throw Norm Macdonald, a more mainstream comedian, in there. I don't know. I'm completely speculating here, but either way, they are making changes.
One thing that bothers me about this a little bit, our viewers may not actually recognize the importance that Gabe Kaplan has played in the history of poker and the promotion of the game. Gabe Kaplan, everyone knows he was on Welcome Back, Kotter. What they may not know is that it was the #1 rated show for 3 years in a row, and then he left. And he left because he wanted to go to Vegas and gamble. He just went to Vegas, he hung out with Doyle, with Jack Strauss, with Stu Younger, and those guys, and he started playing the World Series of Poker, and that got a lot of attention paid to the World Series of Poker. That's why he was the guy who was in the prime position to start doing the commentary for poker shows when the boom happened and there was a sudden need. He did the World Series of Poker broadcast in 1997. He did it in 2002 with Lon McCarron. He has always been one of those guys who has been around the game and who has done a lot to promote it. And it's kind of, who knows if this is the end for Gabe Kaplan as far as broadcasting goes for
I would
poker.
doubt it. A lot of people love it.
Well, people love him, but apparently they didn't love him enough to tune in. And if they're not tuning in, you got to wonder if A-Way's going to hire him to have people not tune in the future.
So Gary, when you were you framed all that as for people out there who don't know in our listening audience, were you telling me?
No, I was talking.
No, but truthfully, I didn't know all that. I totally did not. I knew he's been in the game forever, but I didn't know how. I didn't know he just left Welcome Back, Kotter. All I know about Welcome Back, Kotter is the theme song and that it was a show set in the classroom in the 70s. That's all.
Well, you know what Horseshack does, right?
I have no idea.
Do the Horseshack for me. You don't remember the Horseshack?
No.
With the arm in the air and oh, Mr. Kotter? No?
Oh, I have heard the name, but I have no idea. Okay. I've never seen the show.
Folks, not that I would ever advocate illegal activities, but if you were to torrent Welcome Back, Kotter, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I was born in 1981. I think he had moved on. So.
Yeah, he had. I think he left Kotter in 77. I may be wrong on that number, but this is almost before my time, almost.
So that's pretty awesome. That whole thing behind it, and you're saying that honestly, even more respect for Gabe Kaplan. I always, found him funny. I always thought he was really hilarious on High Stakes Poker. Just didn't care that much about the commentary, which really wasn't that big of a deal either way. But, that I guess that doesn't mean, of course, that anybody's entitled to anything. But hopefully that means that he'll have, even more opportunities in the future to do broadcasting, with, at least poker commentary, if that's what he wants to do. That would be a cool thing by me anyway. And I always loved high stakes poker, and hearing about this makes me think I should probably go back and watch last season because I couldn't get enough of it.
I'm guessing you're going to watch next season because Galfon's on. He's been begging me to get Norm to say nice things about him in tweets.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll probably have to check that out, I guess.
All right. Folks, we are done with the chit-chats. We've been talking a long time. It's been really interesting getting into some of these topics, and I think that with the mouths on Jason and I, we could go another hour, hour and a half.
Pretty easily.
But, eventually you're going to want to see John Duhamel. He is our world champion, and we did get him on this show because, hey, we figure people will want to see our world champion being interviewed, so we should probably get to that. So that said, he's Jason Senti, and I'm Gary Wise. Jason, pleasure doing business with you.
Yeah, Gary, it was a lot of fun. Hopefully people enjoy this first episode and like the interview with Duhamel. It was put together in a pretty quick fashion, but it was still a lot of fun, and he's a very interesting guy and our current world champ, so stay tuned to check it out, and hopefully we'll see you guys on more shows in the future.
All right, folks, after some technical difficulties, which is the only way to start off a new show, we are ready to get on with the interview segment of the show. Normally, Jason and I will be doing interviews from behind the comfort of our own computer with the guests joining us from their computer. But today's kind of different because, as we discussed in the introduction, Jason is at Foxwoods. He's been a part of the November 9 reunion, and the gentleman sitting beside him in the PokerStars.net hat happens to have been a November 9er, and he's the only survivor. We are pleased to start off our run with World Champion Jonathan Duhamel as our first guest. Jonathan, thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
And being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for dealing with our technical stuff,
That's
TJ.
cool. That's fine.
We are a high-class organization using low-class technology, and you reap the benefits of that.
There you go.
So,
have you said your name yet, Gary?
Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I'm assuming that that's what he said in the introduction part, but I'm Gary Wise.
Nice.
So, folks, we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants here, but we're going to get this right. Jonathan, welcome to the show. You are at the tail end of a marathon of poker playing and drinking and clubbing and good times at Foxwoods. Tell us why you're there.
I'm there right now in Foxwoods, you mean?
Yeah.
Because it was a November 9 reunion, so, that was a very good idea from Bernard Lee to try to invite all of us to, kind of play a tournament with a couple of Foxwoods regulars and basically just be all the November 9ers together, having a lot of fun, playing a couple of tournaments, a couple of cash games, and for the rest just, having a good time, all of us together. So we had a lot of fun. It was a very good thing, very nice week for all of us. But, yeah, that was cool. That was very cool from Bernard to invite us, and folks were nice, so it was cool.
Now, I got to say, I'm a little curious. When I originally came out to your home in Quebec, I asked you about the camaraderie of the November 9 experience. This was before the final table was played. I asked you about, do you feel like you're going to be recognizing these other 8 guys as people you've gone through a special experience with? And you were cautious. You said, I like them. They seem like good guys, but I got to beat them. So my question is, now that you have beat them, good thing, do you feel a certain bond with these guys now that you're on the other side?
Well, to be honest, they are all very good guys. All of them, we had a lot of fun this week, and I already knew that, before the final table. But again, you need to be cautious because we're playing for $1 million in the title and everything. So just because of that, I was, just trying to be a little cautious with them, even though I know they're all good guys. You don't want to talk strategy and stuff with them too much. But now, the tournament's over, it's all fine. We just basically hang out a lot, had a lot of fun, did a lot of different things. Went to the Celtics games, stuff like that. It was honestly a lot of fun, and I'm very happy, to be lucky enough to be part of this reunion.
Now, as we record this on February 11th, you just mentioned the Celtics game. Yesterday, UFC in Toronto sold out. I know you're a big fan, and I know that right before UFC 124, you got to experience a little bit of the benefits of being the world champion of poker. Tell us what Georges St. Pierre's like.
He's the man. Honestly, the guy's a gentleman. He's the like top athletes in the world for sure. And when I met him, it was just the day before he was fighting. So because of that, it was really like dehydrated and stuff. It was like just before he goes, do the weigh-ins and stuff. So the guy probably haven't ate at all for like the last 2 days and stuff. So because of that, he was, let's say, like a little weaker than normal for sure. But I mean, he was still a very nice guy. We talked for like 10 minutes, and he's a hell of a nice guy. I'm so happy I had the chance to meet him.
What has that been your coolest experience throughout this entire thing, or has there been something else that's really stood out to you?
Well, I gotta say, this guy George St. Pierre is like the best athlete like in the world for sure. He's working so hard to be where he is right now. So I mean, for me, he's been an idol for like a couple of years now since I'm a like UFC and MMA fan. So for me, just to have the chance to meet him, was like, oh my god, I mean, this is like worth anything in the world. So I'm like so happy that I had the chance to do that.
And folks, Duhamel, a true French Canadian kid, passed up the opportunity to drop a puck at a Leafs Canadiens game to meet George and to go to the UFC. So you know he means it when he says it. When we spoke back in October, one thing that you talked about was the fact that you were excited for the opportunity to not only to win the championship, obviously that's a big deal, but also to embrace the ambassadorship that comes with the championship. A lot of people expect a lot from our world champion. I think it's obvious to anybody who's been paying attention that you've been working your butt off. You know, you've been doing 12-hour days, 14-hour days. You've been doing a lot promoting the game, making a lot of appearances. Has it been tougher than you expected, or has it been exactly what you expected?
It has been a little more work than I expected, to be honest. I mean, it's a big job trying to be, to answer all the interviews and to be everywhere like people want you to be. It's a lot of work, but I mean, it's a lot of fun at the same time. It's a unique experience, and I'm having a lot of fun doing that. I mean, people are very nice with me. People, congratulate me, shook my hand and stuff, and with a smile and stuff. So for me, I'm doing that with a smile also, and I'm having a lot of fun doing that. It is a role being trying to be the ambassador. It's a lot of work to be honest, but I mean I know I can't complain at all, and I'm having a lot of fun doing what I do, and hopefully it's going to continue for a while.
Now, you made your first big score since the World Series last week, and congratulations on that. At the same time, are you sort of understanding why a guy like Joe Cata might have had more difficulty in the year following his championship than he did prior to that? You know, with all the attention and all the exposure and the distractions.
Well, I have to say it's very like much tougher than I expected to try to stay on the top like after you're the champion, because you have so much to do, so much work. You don't have that much time to work on your game. So I mean, because of that, people are gonna see you on TV, so maybe they're gonna adjust their style to yours, but you don't have time to do that. So it's very tough to try to maintain I don't know the way you were playing and to keep being on top. I find the way people play against me is much more different now. So I mean, I always like all the time I got to adjust my game to that, and then try to find if the guy really knows how to play against my old style. So if I need a new style or not against this guy in particular, and you need to do that against everybody. So I mean, it's a lot of work, and I understand where like maybe a couple of the champions that was like tough for them to make other scores, because it is tough. And people sometimes they want to bluff you more or stuff like that. So you got to be aware like all the time. And because you're working so hard doing other stuff as well, it's kind of tough to work on your own game. So I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of work, but again, I use that as motivation to try to improve my game and become the best poker player I can be.
Does that all make your recent score all the more satisfying? Like, do you think that kind of showed the world that yes, you are for real? It wasn't just one time.
I guess I was very happy about this one because it was very close. It was like 2 or 3 months after I won the main event, so it was cool. Especially it was a high roller, so the field is always a little tougher with the high rollers tournaments. But it was I mean just to be back on the final table again and to fight for the title again. I was lucky enough to win the title, so I'm very happy about that, and it means a lot. And I'm very happy about that, and hopefully I'm going to be able to do. I want to do at least one other big one before next World Series.
I'm going to ask you one more question right now, and then I'll pass it over to Jason for a bit, and we'll keep on trading off in badges like that. How have you found the professional community has embraced you? Are you kind of looked at as a one-hit, like just this year's poster kid, and you might be gone in a year, or are they really turned out to be good guys and offer you friendship and guidance?
I gotta say, people I think are very nice with me. I don't know, I'm just trying to be, the normal kid I was before winning. But I found, I met some, some of the big names in the poker world, and they've been very nice with me. So I don't know, it's kind of cool. A lot of people give me some tips and stuff. So yeah, it's I'm happy about that, because you never know how people are gonna look at you and stuff. So even though I know, during some precise hand during the final table or before the final table, I was lucky at some points. I think I played great during the final table, and people give me respect for that. So I'm very happy, and hopefully it's gonna stay this way.
Jason, I'm sorry I lied. I have one follow-up question.
Okay, that's all right.
What was the best piece of advice that you've gotten from anybody over this journey?
Well, I would say a couple of guys. It was just like a general advice, but it's so true though. I mean, don't take your playing style for granted, because now people have seen you play on TV and stuff. So you got to continually adjust your like the way you're playing, your style of playing. So I mean, even though like I was able to win a tournament playing one poker style, let's say, I still got to change it because people adjust. Like they adjust their style to mine. So I still gotta continually change my style, and I don't know, be able to always, even though like you're pretty busy and stuff like that, to take some time for you to just think about your game and what can you do better to continue being on the top.
Jason.
Okay, cool. Let's see if we can slide a little bit. We need you in camera far more than me. Not only because you're prettier, but because you're the real guest. Yeah, there we go. Now let's get Gary out of the shot a little bit, and that'll help it out. So, okay, of course, I have to ask you some pretty obligatory questions. You've done a gajillion interviews at this point, right? And you've heard a lot of the same ones. But, what can I do about that? First of all, congrats as well for the EPT event. Told you that in person, yada, yada. But may as well ask. I'm supposed to be asking poker questions, is what I've been told for this. So I can't just ask you all the dumb stuff and maybe all the silly stuff we've talked about or done the last few days, but maybe I can a little bit. I guess we'll start off with, this is pretty generic, but I think it's, I don't know, I have opinions on it as a cash game player myself, but as a cash player, what do you think that has done for you in playing tournaments? Because you were primarily a cash game player before the World Series, right?
Yeah.
So in what ways has that hurt you? What ways has that helped you?
I gotta say, when you play cash game, you play like very deep, much more deep than when you play tournaments. So at the early stages of a tournament, I think the cash game players has a big edge on the other guys because they're very used to playing deep and stuff like that. When you get to like 30, 40, 50 big blinds though, then you gotta adjust your style. So some cash game players are going to be able to adjust, and other ones maybe not as well as the other ones. So it's very important to change your style and start playing like you should be playing, let's say 40 big blinds deep and stuff like that. But I honestly think, and then I think that for me, I think it's like a lot easier to go from cash games to tournament than tournaments to cash games. So now for me that I don't play that much cash game, now I play a lot more tournaments. It's not. I mean, I don't think it is that tough to adjust your playing style to do that.
Yeah. So like, I know right now you just got off of winning the biggest tournament in the world, and having more success since then. But realistically, what do you think about how you will do in that 20 to 40 big blind stack range versus somebody who has tons and tons of experience, or at least one of the better players?
But honestly, I gotta say, before playing tournaments, I was playing a lot of those like one table sit-and goes on Poker Stars. So I've practiced, that aspect of the game a lot. Yeah. So I think I'm trying to play as much as I can online again on Stars to see all those situations that you're sure that you know what to do when you play those big live tournaments. So it is, but you just need to take a little time off to think about that and think about how you should play 30, 40, 50 big blinds. But honestly, I think I'll be able to adjust my style and to play a bunch of tournaments and do some good scores.
Awesome. So okay, gotta ask one question about the Chong hand. Just is that what people refer to it as to you even?
Yeah.
The Chong hand. I mean, pretty much, right? Yeah. Where if anybody doesn't know, he's 6-bet shoved, and you had queens and he had ace-x, ace-7. The question I'm going to ask then, instead of, I'm sure you've heard basically every standard question on it, but would you have had a 4-bet flatting range then? And I'll explain why in a second I'm asking that, but I'm curious. Do you think you're ever flatting any 4-bets?
It is tough to say. I'd say like tens of jacks. I'm not sure I would have like 4-bet flat.
Well, like ace-queen suited. ace jack suited, because you probably would have 3-bet that in the first place,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Simply because of how aggro your guys' dynamic
that I
was.
agree. And then when you 4-bets, I would probably just call there like most of the time. I would say, look, so I would say like queens was like one of the worst, and I was like 5-bet calling with. And when he shoves, I mean, I wasn't happy to call, but I knew I was calling like all the time. But I wasn't too happy about that because he could like very easily have kings or aces.
So many blinds in the biggest moment.
Exactly, and with the situation that Richmond was like short stack a lot. So because of that, it was tough. But I kind of felt like queens there is a monster, so I got to do it. Even though it was like maybe I would have done it with jacks, but I'm really not sure. I think queens was like the weakest.
And you definitely would have 3-bet jacks. Though.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked that is I have heard a lot of people talk. Everybody has their opinions on the what Chong's play, etc. But if you are going to be flatting 4-bets with a lot of your kind of medium strength, strong hands, your hands that you would have 3-bet for value, but now facing a 4-bet, you would not want to get in. If you're going to be doing that, it actually makes a shove better, right?
Yeah.
Because it puts in it takes your range and takes all those like ace queen, ace jack, all those hands out. Now it's pretty much you fold if you don't have aces, kings, queens, or ace king.
Exactly. I agree.
And so everything else is there.
That's why I've always said, the Chung's move is not as bad as what most people think. I mean, a lot of people think, why did he shove in all those reasons? But there's a lot of reasons why he did that. And I mean, Chung is a very, very strong player, and he thinks a lot and stuff. So I mean, he did that for a reason. And after that, in the interview, said, I would do it again. And I mean, I think he played great also. I mean, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but if it was one, it was a very small one, not as big as what people think.
Yeah, and I mean, the other question then would be, would you have ever actually been 5-betting here? Because you thought he was 4-betting here a lot, and that's if you were never actually 5-betting as a bluff, then of course it's not good.
Yeah.
But when you combine flatting 4-bets and
that's I was doing like not a lot of times, but maybe some rare times because he was putting so much pressure. But at that point, what I really wanted is just try to play the smallest plus as possible against Chung, just to because I think Racing was playing way too tight for 2-handed.
Yeah.
So if we just wait both of us, then just keep fighting up, but in small pots, eventually Racing is going to be lost up and we're going to go heads up.
Absolutely.
So really, just to interject here for 1 second, so really you wanted to just chop up Razor and you didn't want to get involved in a hand?
Not with Chung. No, because I mean, both of us were had our chip stack was so high compared to Rishner's one. So I really thought at that point, Rishner's playing too tight for 2-handed. So Chung and I have a head on him right now. So we don't want to fight too much. But Chung was fighting like hell with me, and I wasn't happy about that. So for me, it was just about I'm just gonna maybe let him run over me a little bit, but just so that we bust Racing. Maybe I'm gonna go heads up, maybe a little shorter than I should be, but at least I'll be heads up.
All right, important follow-up question. Has Racer bought you any nice things since you knocked out Chung?
Did you talk with him much since then?
Not really, I gotta say. Probably one of the one I've talked less with.
Same. Yeah, he was here. So we're out here at Foxwoods for a November 9 reunion tournament.
Right.
Was mentioned, and it's was a lot of fun. And yeah, he was only here for a few hours.
A few hours.
Yeah, everybody. Most of us we've hung out quite a bit, but not so much with John at this point.
Well, you know what? Having interviewed all of you guys during the November 9 process, I can tell you that Racer was definitely the guy who was most standoffish from the rest of the group. He didn't want to have anything to do with any of the rest of you. In terms of, we actually had a show arranged, a panel show arranged, like the one that you two did with Gary Wise versus the World, where he was going to come on. It was a lot of fun. He was going to come on with a couple of the guys. It was Joe and Soywin, and at the last moment he canceled because he didn't really understand until that moment that he was supposed to be interacting with other November 9ers, and he had no desire to do that whatsoever. So maybe he lost out on that process a little bit by, or lost out on the bonding experience a little bit by his approach to the whole thing. And maybe that's why you guys aren't as close with him as you are with some of the other members of the table.
Yeah, obviously he won a lot of money, so I don't think he's missing out too much on that, or too upset about the bonding type thing. But yeah, I think that would make sense because for the most part we just haven't talked to him as much. So moving on, we'll do a little bit more poker stuff, and then we're already kind of pushing it here. You mentioned when you were talking to Gary about people playing differently against you now. Now I have experienced some of this as well, just having recently gotten a lot more TV time than I've had in the past, et cetera. Especially when I play locally, where I'm known a lot more in the Minnesota area. What ways are you seeing people change the most? Obviously, some people are just gonna want to bluff you. Some people never want to fold. Some people will just be scared to death. What are you seeing most commonly? And how do you adjust?
Say the thing is what people have seen from me on TV is I'm playing quite aggressive. I think a little bit like Joseph. So because of that, people are calling me like way lighter, check calling and stuff like that. So my bluffs work way less than what it was working before. So I gotta be careful and try not to bluff too much. And I've already like during PCA, I bust a couple of tournaments, running a bluff that I thought was good at the time, but afterwards realized shit, like people knows a bluff all the time. So I gotta be careful with that. So I'm just trying. It depends, but like most of the time, just trying to play a little more ABC than I would play normally. Not too much, but just a little bit. And I don't know, maybe wait for hands a little more than I would do normally, because people tend to call a lot lighter and tend to try to bluff me much more. So
Yeah,
I need hands to defend for that.
absolutely. I've experienced a pretty similar thing. On occasion, I have found people who just for some reason now, because they hear I'm a pro, they think I'm going to read their souls and everything. Yeah. So I'm sure you've had a few guys like that.
A little bit also.
That's kind of nice.
But most of the people, they just want to play with you, so just so that they say that they played with the champion, something like that.
Ran a bluff, made a thing called out.
Exactly. I bluffed it. Yeah, so because of that, people are going to play like differently, and probably they're not playing a good style. But I mean, it's tough for you to adjust exactly how the way you should adjust to.
Yeah, I think the key is figuring out, sooner than later, that you're going to have to make those changes against certain people, because all people are going to interpret it differently.
Exactly.
The weaker the player, the more obvious they make it to you how they're going to adjust. But yeah.
But what's tough is like, does he know it? Like, is he doing it? And him. Like people will change the way they play, and other people won't. So you just got to figure as early as possible who is changing their style, like because it's you.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Okay, you versus Jarvis in a cage match. I know what your answer is going to be, but realistically, who do you think is going to win?
Sure.
I knew you were going to say that.
Come on,
I don't know. I think I might put money on Jarvis in that one.
All right.
Although I do think you're really scrappy, but he's a little bigger.
How about on the hockey rink?
Oh, that's a good question.
But I think Jarvis skates very well. I'm not sure, but I think he does skate very well.
You guys never got out skating this week, did you?
No, we were supposed to, but we never did. It would be a lot of fun, though.
Yeah,
I will say Duhamel's good in sneakers on the hockey rink. I've seen that. He played some ball hockey when I was in Quebec.
And now, I don't remember, Gary. What was the score at the end of the game you saw?
It was good for you. I don't remember the exact score, but you guys definitely kicked some ass.
We won 10-0. I just wanted you to say it.
Was it 10-0?
10-0, yeah.
I think I left in the third period because I knew the game was pretty much over.
It was like 8-0 or something like that.
For the record, it took me 2 hours to drive back to my hotel that night because I got lost in the wilderness of Quebec.
It's kind
frightening place to drive for an Anglophone.
That was kind of my fault also. I think I gave you the wrong direction.
Give the wrong direction.
Oh, go! It's only 45 minutes. Just head that way. Like that. I gotta play hockey. It's it's Quebec. You gotta play hockey.
Well, I think that's pretty good from the poker questions, and we're already kind of pushing it. He and I are actually due to run to a dinner here pretty quickly with some other November Niners and all that fun stuff. Do you actually not remember what happened last night after the limo?
You really want to talk about that?
Okay, yeah, we're good there.
I remember everything.
Of course he does. Okay, cool.
Let me ask you one last thing, Jonathan. You've obviously seen your Q rating rise across the board. Can you tell me a little bit about the reaction in Quebec to your championship? I have to think that you've almost reached cult status as a result of bringing this kind of honor on the province.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't know exactly what, but people are like very, very proud. People sees me kind of a little bit like George St. Pierre because he's a world champion and now I'm one also. But I mean, for me, it's like I'm so far away from George. But a lot of people see like the guy went in the international circuit and became the champion doing what he likes. So a lot of people are like very proud of that and those things. For me, I mean, I was just there, playing game. Was lucky enough to win just the biggest poker tournament. I mean, but I could, you never. It's it's tough to say. Like in the poker world, I mean, you win some, you lose some. So I mean, it's very important to stay humble, I think, and know that I mean, I still got to work on my game. I still got to practice, and I still got to work hard if I want to stay on the top. That's it.
He gives the good answers like George too. Yeah. Jason, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah. Seriously, thanks a lot for coming on, and of course, I was at the same table as you, and I seriously couldn't be happier for you. Awesome guy, and really happy and glad that Canada's behind you proud. And go out there and kick some more ass on the tournament circuit. I'll be there with you.
I sure do. All right, cool.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Folks, that's Jason Senti. I'm Gary Wise. That was John Duhamel on our show. World Champion. It's a pretty good way to start. We plan on having the 2011 World Champion on our next episode,
I'll
just
be
to
there.
keep it going.
I'll be there.
Thanks.
Nice.
Okay, John's coming back. Very nice. Thank you very much for tuning into this first episode of Both Sides of the Table. We look forward to bringing in more. For now, we're Gary and Jason. Cheers.